Welcome in, everybody, to Betting Pros. It's time to place your bets. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pisapia, and Monday night we've got some fun baseball going on. We got the Home Run Derby competition. Everybody loves dingers. Chicks dig the long ball, and so do we. And to help me break down the Home Run Derby is my good friend and co-host from Leading Off from Fantasy Pros MLB channel, the fastest growing subscription channel on the YouTube planet for baseball, the Welsh. Chris Welsh is here to break it all down with us. Again, make sure you subscribe to Betting Pros wherever you get your pods. Like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to drop a comment below, because if you do, you might win a 1-year free premium upgrade to the greatest Betting Pros tools on the planet that are going to help you bet smarter, not harder. Welsh, we love the Derby. It's great fun, way more fun than the All-Star game, which is hard to wager on, sometimes hard to watch. But Welsh, I'm excited for the Derby. We got some good contestants. We're missing last year's winner, but this is a pretty good group. What do you feel about these names that we got dropped for the Derby in 2023?
Yeah, it's actually funny. You and I, we did, when we had like 5 of the names on Leading Off, we were doing like a little draft to get who some of these other players were. And Luis Robert was one that I picked. The seeding is really interesting too, because Robert was the 6th guy to be added, and he was given the #1 seed of the homers and stuff like that. But this is a big group of power hitters. The only thing to me it's missing is Ellie De La Cruz, but I think there's a lot of fun, a lot of thump out of this group. And the odds are already kind of coming up is very, very interesting as far as what we can bet. So I'm looking forward to it.
And these odds will move a lot too. So pay close attention to what we're talking about here. And as Welsh was alluding to, the pairings that you have going through also, we're going to break down the brackets, then pick our winners and talk a little baseball betting too on the side, because we just can't get enough of it. And Welsh, let's talk about a little history before we even get into that. Last year, Juan Soto was the winner. He defeated Julio Rodriguez. Then 2 years before that, in 2019, 2020, obviously, we had that miss because of COVID. In 2021, Pete Alonso was the winner in both of those. But we've seen an evolution of the Home Run Derby. It's become timed. So now it's very different. I think it really favors the guys who are in really good physical condition. Pete Alonso trains for this. He takes this very seriously. He was down there last year. We saw him lifting weights down in the tunnel. It was crazy, the stuff we saw him doing. But in the end last year, it was the phenomenal athletic version of Juan Soto that made it through. And I think that's very important when you look at this grouping, is trying to find the guys that can have the stamina basically to go through these rounds that are timed and continue to hit home runs at a certain clip. Now, I know you get timeouts, you get certain different rules, and every year there's more funky little wrinkles that go in there. So we're going to do our best to pick the winners coming out of the brackets and then pick the overall winners. Now, based on the 25 home runs through 84 games played, Luis Robert stands as a value here potentially, because as Welsh mentioned, that was one guy we were waiting on. We did end up getting him. Then there's some guys with some lower home run totals, but some really good numbers. So Welsh is going to bring the numbers. I'm going to bring some of the baseball talk, and we're going to hopefully bring you some winners. That 2-7 seed with Pete Alonso and Julio Rodriguez, I want to start there, because you could argue these guys could be the favorites after their showings last year. I think there's a good chance whoever comes out of that bracket could indeed be the winner. So Pete Alonso's had a good season, a little bit further back from last year. Julio, slow start, but has really picked things up lately. He's also the hometown boy.
Yeah,
so
that's important.
This is the thing. I think the energy in that ballpark for the home run boy, the hometown guy, I think Julio is going to get that edge, which is the reason why I'm not picking Pete Alonso this year. Typically, I always spend on 2 guys for this home run derby because you're getting good enough odds to hedge a little bit. I'm going to go with Julio here out of this bracket in the 2-7. You see Alonso or Julio coming out of the 2-7 bracket?
I mean, I want to go. By the way, there's actually 2 hometown guys technically in this.
True.
Ali Rutschman is from this territory, but the true Mariners guy is Julio Rodriguez. I have a hard time with Julio. I think it has been quite a up and down year as far as total connection to everything. His barrel percentage is down almost 3% overall. His hard hit percentage has kind of maintained a decent amount. And I just think, though, Pete Alonso, this might be the generational home run derby champion. Like, this might be the guy. It is just every year he is in competition for it. Obviously, he has struggled to a degree. His hard hit percentage down to 40%. But He has one of the highest barrel percentages of any players that are in this actual competition. I actually had it pulled up here just a second ago. As far as barrel percentage goes, if you wanted to look at any analytical stat, if you can even, by the way, look at anything analytically of what's going to tell you the story of what's going to happen in the home run derby, but he has the fourth of these 8 contestants best barrel percentage of any of these guys. He's the most trained. He knows how to train for it. He knows how to play this game. I can't go against Pete Alonso, regardless of the hometown hero. Everyone will be rooting. There'll be energy for Julio, but I am going to take Pete Alonso to come out of this bracket in the number 2. And he, weirdly enough, he's the number 2, but he is the number 1 in odds, which we'll be talking about in a little bit.
Yeah. And look, I'm just fading the public here because the public money is on Pete Alonso because of the history. And I get that. Plus 250 over on DK. That's the early favorite here. And again, these odds might change as money comes in, but you know, he's a New York player. There's no Aaron Judge this year in this contest. So the most public money is going to be on the most recognizable name. And it's Alonso because he's won it twice and he was in the finals last year. But I think at a certain point that luck runs out a little bit. The 1-8 seed is Luis Robert and Adley Rutschman, as you mentioned before. So for me, this is an easy one. I am going to pick Luis Robert to come out of this bracket, despite the fact that Adley Rutschman is, you know, going back home as well to his roots. To me, Robert is the winner out of this bracket. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Adley is not a traditional home run hitter. He's kind of got that Goldie in him where this is a doubles contact hitter who can hit for power. He does have an absolutely gorgeous swing. I think he'll be able to move it around for hitting homers. You know, hometown or not, though, I think Luis Robert is locked into this one. 16% barrel rate. He was actually 3rd on that list I told you. A little bit better hard hit percentage than what Alonso's putting up this year, and he has just been on a tear. It's always big EVs, big natural raw power for Luis Robert. I think he's built for this. Athleticism we're talking about as well. I'm going to go with Robert.
And as we're talking about this too, remember, there's going to be more wagers that come out, and we will talk about them on leading off on Monday when there's any live stuff, whether it be who's going to, you know, make it to the finals. Usually get bet on that. There's going to be numbers of home runs. So as more of those wagers come out on the board, we literally last night just got the final guys approved for the Derby. So the odds just came off. They're hot off the presses, and we came to you to talk about them. But if you need more specific stuff or extra wagers, make sure you go to Fantasy Pros MLB, subscribe there, watch us on Monday because we will break down more of this stuff. And then the next 2 brackets are fascinating because you have Mookie Betts in the 3 seed against Vlad. Now, Mookie, the exceptional athlete. So in terms of benefiting from, you know, the need of athleticism with this incredible thing that's become the home run derby challenge, where it really does. It's a matter of getting that contact and getting right there and staying in that groove. Vlad has a history of being good here. That's a fascinating matchup. Then you got Adolis Garcia and Randy Arozarena. Now, Arozarena is my pick. The Vlad Mookie one is fascinating. I really struggle with this one. I'm staying away from it. But if I had to get pressed, I would be picking Vlad and Randy Arozarena. What do you think about these 2 remaining brackets? Who ends up advancing?
So going with Vlad real quick, of all players this year, Vlad has the highest hard hit percentage of any player in the home run derby, 57.1%. It's actually 3rd in baseball. He's got I think it's a little over 30% boost on his XBA. So he's hitting 270 to 300. The point of even bringing any of this up is he is absolutely murdering the ball still this year, even though the results haven't been there, and he's underperformed just a tiny bit, but he does have one of the lower barrel percentages. So do any of those tell you any story? Maybe not necessarily, but in game action, the barrel percentage has struggled in a BP fashion where he is hitting the ball harder than every single contestant in this game. I think it's hard to bet against Vlad. I'm going to take that with me, and I'm going to go with Vlad on that. On the other side, this is what I think is hilarious because you're really in on Randy Arozarena this time.
I am.
I'm actually
You want to talk about athlete, you want to talk about strength, you want to talk about endurance. Randy Arozarena ticks all those boxes for me in terms of what he can do in this format. Now, in the old format, it would be Vlad and Garcia for me. I'm still going Vlad over Mookie just because of that raw power, but I'm going with Arozarena because I just think his stamina-wise is going to be better than Garcia. But I know you see this differently, and I can't wait to hear why.
Well, I'm going to show you this. So like what I'm doing this year when I'm taking a look at it, when I'm trying to find any edge, because at the end of the day, we can just look at the home run hitters and we kind of throw our money out and be like, I like this guy and have some fun with it. But if you're looking for any edge, the two things I'm focusing on are that barrel percentage and I'm focusing on that hard hit. Barrel percentage, again, means I think even less because this is a BP type of thing, but it's just ultimately like how much are they really putting it on? There are only two players in this grouping in the Home Run Derby that have a 15% plus barrel percentage and an over 50% hard hit rate. Guess who those are? Adolis Garcia and Randy Arozarena, and they're up against each other. They're going up against, but I'm going to edge it out on Adolis Garcia. You're taking Randy. I'm taking
Garcia. Randy. It's like the Highlander. There can be only one, and we're going to...
Adolis has has a higher barrel percentage, over 16%. He's got the 50% hard hit rate. I think he just might surprise some people. It's really good odds as well. So I'm actually going to go with Adolis. Slight little edge for that barrel and that hard hit over Randy. But I agree, the athleticism makes a lot of sense on both of these guys. And these two would be so much fun if they were in other areas because I could see them going up against each other. But I'm going to take Adolis Garcia.
I think ballpark factor matters too for some of these guys. So when you start looking at, where their power alleys are and start doing some of the bigger, Welsh has got a stat. I can feel it. But seriously, this is not Yankee Stadium. This is not one of those wiffle ball fields. Seattle built a little differently, not an impossible place to hit home runs by any stretch of the means, but certainly a little bit more challenging than some other recent home run derby environments we've had. Welsh, that being said, does that change how you feel?
So I'm really glad you said this because I completely would have forgot to mention this. This is something beforehand that I was taking a look at. It's always fun to go and peek. You can peek at the ballpark factors for players and where they would hit more homers. Well, Pete Alonso in Seattle would actually have one less homer on the year in Seattle if he were hitting there. Again, these are all very little things because of the environment of how they're going to be hitting. But Adolis Garcia would have the second most homers of any ballpark in Seattle. The only park he would have more homers on the year is in Cincinnati with 31, 27 projected homers if he were hitting in Seattle on his 22 he is hitting for the year. So that's a 7+ home run boost in this ballpark. Luis Robert has something a little bit similar, but Alonso going down doesn't show it just a 1-for-1 on all hitters doing that. That is another little advantage for Adolis Garcia.
Let's look at the numbers. Let's look at the odds. Pete Alonso right now, and these are the first numbers that came out. So these are from DK. Pete Alonso plus 250, Vlad at plus 300, then Julio at plus 450, Luis Robert plus 550. Then we go to that next tier. Garcia plus 600, Arozarena plus 800, which is why I like him so much. It's such a good return. Adley Rutschman plus 1,000, and then Mookie Betts plus 1,200. So I'm going to leave the big guys out in terms of the big potential underdogs and Rutschman and Mookie Betts. Would it surprise me if they won? No, it's the Derby. Anything can happen. But Arozarena is really interesting to me. Again, I think he fits the bill physically, stamina, strength, everything that you're looking for. He's having a great season. I think he's been really locked in at the plate this year. I love him as the long shot, and I always like to pick a long shot and kind of a favorite. So for me, my favorite pairing of that, Randy Arozarena plus 800. So you can put a smaller unit on that and then put a bigger unit on Julio Rodriguez at plus 450. That's my approach. Those are my picks. Welsh, how are you wagering on the Derby with this board that we have in front of us right now?
I'm going to take a similar approach. By the way, Randy Arozarena might have the best, most explosive bat speed of any of the players in this. And that's crazy when you
And you have to generate your own power more. Yeah. See, to me, when you're having these batting practice pitching going on, you have to be a player that, which is why Pete Alonso is always so good. He generates his own power. Vladdy generates his own power. Guys like Mookie Betts, they're power hitters in the sense that they react well. It's reflexes, right? They take mistakes and they hit them out. Arozarena is another one of these guys that he can generate his own power. And I think you have to do that. And then you have to do it for a long period of time to end up getting there. And at the end, it might not be, it's not for the guy who hits the most home runs. Remember, it's not cumulative. It's who can win round by round and continue to have that stamina. I also think Arozarena, if he gets out of that first area, has an easier path to the final. Because if you look at the other side, you got to go through Vlad, Julio, Pete Alonso. So only one of those guys is going to get through to the final potentially. And I think that is a very different way to look at the board, but that's why I like Arozarena so much too.
The path is really interesting in what you're talking about. I guess the only thing with the Rosarena, when I'm mentioning like he might have the most explosive bat speed with it, is I just feel like regardless of how athletic you are, over time, being able to generate that swing that he does, it might wear him out regardless of how athletic he is. But the path is easier. On that same token, my long shot, you're going to guess it, Adolis Garcia. So he's my, you got 8-1. I'm taking 6-1 on Adolis Garcia. That's my one that I'm putting a little bit of a unit on. And then I'm going to go with the guy, like I said, we just might look back and he owns the home run derby, Pete Alonso. I'm going to go with Pete Alonso, even though he's the favorite, 2.5-1. I think that's just a safe bet. Put a little bit more money on there. If I can go in with Adolis and Pete Alonso, I feel really, really good about it. But I will say, if you like to live dangerously, Adolis and Randy Arozarena might be the two most fun bets to put together here, except they're going up against each other. So you got to be careful about how you put your units.
You can wait, see who comes out of that, and then live bet it too. And of course, this is why you download the BettingPros app, so you have everything in terms of updated lines, and there's going to be movement on the Derby as well. There's going to be movement. I guarantee you there's going to be money that comes in on Julio because he's in Seattle, and I guarantee that plus 450 is going to be lower by the time we get to Monday. I'm telling you, I just feel it in my bones. So to stay on top of all these things, to get specific notifications for sports that you are betting, that's what BettingPros is for. You can use, the pick tracking to make sure you can see how your bets are doing. You can follow other people who are really good at betting certain sports to get a little insider information to see where you should be placing your bets. And to that point too, we have a lot of amazing tools, including the prop bet cheat sheet. And on top of that, another thing that we use a lot, besides the prop bet cheat sheet on BettingPros, when we talk about every day on leading off and we do our betting segment, the prop bet analyzer is a great tool as well. And that's something that's going to really help you decipher and understand why to bet certain things, why it's a good wager that day. So there's a lot of science, a lot of projections behind all that, a lot of good data. And I think the fact that we can do all that for you guys is a really helpful thing. Again, if you haven't already, make sure you download the app. It's free, and then go up to peel into these tools like the prop bet cheat sheet and the analyzer. And one of the things when I'm looking at baseball Welsh, for me, it's always getting to the K props. When you can find the pitchers that have high K per nines, high strikeout rates, high swing and miss percentages, right? All of that. And then you couple it with a team like the Royals that they're facing, right? When you have a team that strikes out a ton just as an offense. I mean, look at what's happened recently with the Royals, right? Giving Pablo Lopez a dozen strikeouts in that game. You see these certain teams and these certain setups. That's where you can go make money in Major League Baseball. You can follow that over on BettingPros. Targeting that is one of my favorite things to do. And then looking at total base props too. When you look at the prop bet analyzer and you see players like Corbin Carroll, right, who get on base, make good contact, have speed, who can turn a single into, basically a home run over time because of that speed. Those are the kind of guys you want to focus on. Welsh, when you are putting out bets for MLB, what are some of the baseline bets, puns intended, for you that you always like to go for and try to make investments in?
Well, and I'll tell you one thing, what I really like about the prop sheet and the analyzer is that it will put me in a place to do more research on a player, because you can easily, I think the thing you could easily do is just say, oh, look, this tells me I should bet this. You could bet it. I am just nutty about everything. I want to go in. What that has always done is it will highlight players that I want to look deeper into. So one of the things I do when a strikeout guy might pop up is I'll do exactly what you were talking about with the Royals. I did this just the other day with Kodai Senga against the Diamondbacks. He pops up. I go and look. Guess what? Diamondbacks had struck out more than any team over the last 3 games, even though they were one of the lower strikeout teams total. Kodai Senga, strikeouts were there. Make the bet. It was 5.5 plus money. Struck out like 12. I mean, it's crazy. So you, when I'm getting into especially strikeout prop bets, that can get me in the right spot. Then I'm going to look at the team context, where they've been at, and then you can also go and focus in on how teams are performing versus righties or lefties. My personal prop bets on the year, strikeouts have been where I've tried to focus. Total bases, I love to do. I tend to steer myself sometimes in the wrong direction. I think a hidden one this year has been runs scored. And runs scored has actually gotten a little bit tougher. If you hone in on the Mookie Betts, the Corbin Carroll's been a phenomenal one. You get guys with really big high speed totals in bigger offenses, that run scored total is kind of a free square sometimes. So I think Ks have been one of the best spots to go with. Total bases over hits, except in that same vein of what we're talking about with total bases, you can't bet hits individually anymore. They're minus 270 for the majority of the time. But you can put some parlays together where you go and find a couple guys who are projected. If you're looking at the prop cheat sheet, you go and look at some guys that are projected for high hits, take 2 or 3 of them together, and you can get really good plus money. I just did this on leading off just the other day, picking Lane Thomas, and I picked Wander Franco. And I actually had George Springer in it, but he didn't play. That was a 3-hit parlay for guys that were projected for higher hit totals, and boom, it cashed out for me. So besides strikeouts and total bases, maybe parlaying a couple hits on some low money and runs for props are places that I have been targeting lately.
And we're talking baseball betting 5 days a week on Leading Off. Again, Fantasy Pros MLB is where you can watch us. You can also follow us on Betting Pros, which is cool. So you can find the Welsh, you can find myself, and you can follow the bets that we're putting out there on any given day for MLB. 5 days a week, we are out there grinding away at this. And the prop bet cheat sheet, the prop bet analyzer, all these tools are there to help you. So download the Betting Pros app and get to work here. Football season's right around the corner, but again, we are there breaking it all down for you on the MLB side. The Home Run Derby is going to be fun. Make sure you check that out. And if you want more Home Run Derby talk, on Monday, when we have some more bets out there, we'll continue to discuss that as well in this family of Fantasy Pros networks. That's what we are. You got Betting Pros, you got Fantasy Pros, you got Fantasy Pros MLB. We're covering all your bases nowadays. So make sure you're following us, like this video, share, subscribe, drop a comment below, win a free year upgraded Betting Pro subscription, or just go premium today at bettingpros.com/premium and get the best of all the worlds of betting tools. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For the Welsh, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids. Enjoy the Derby.